එදා යුද්ධයෙන් බැටකෑ අද අලිමිනිස් ගැටුමට මැදි වූ එදා සිට අද දක්වා පානීය ජල ගැටලුවෙන් පීඩා විඳිනා මහවිලච්චය නෙළුම්විල ගම්වැසියන් සඳහා පිරිසිදු පානීය ජල පෙරණ පද්ධතියක් ලබා දීමට ගම්මැද්ද මුලපිරු වගයි.
Good evening and welcome to your primetime news here on News First. I'm Deshan Gonala for the News First team. As always, we've got the very latest stories from here at home and around the world. But first, let's have a look at your leading stories for today.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Permission granted to import quality plant nutrients, including urea.
මේක සාමූහික තීරණයක්. මේක සාමූහිකයි. ඒකට කවුරු හරි අනුගත වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒ පුද්ගලයාගේ තියෙන්නේ පරාර්ථකාමයකට වඩා ආත්මාර්ථකාමයක්.
Fertilizer import restrictions will be relaxed except for paddy cultivations. State Minister of Organic Fertilizer clarifies. Government's actions do not match its words. An argument by the opposition leader.
කොයි මොහොතේ මේ තීන්දුව වෙනස් කරයිද කියන එකත් අපිට හිතා ගන්නට.
Harin's revelation on those responsible for the April 21st attacks. Health authorities warn against Delta variant sublineages. Life-saving surgeries at the Badulla and Kegol hospitals.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to your news. Now, Agriculture Secretary Professor Udit K. Jayasinghe says permission has been granted to import plant nutrients, including those that were banned. While noting the transformation to green agriculture can't occur overnight, the Ministry Secretary noted that alternatives are being explored on an alternate substance as the cost of urea has increased.
What types of fertilizer have been given priority?
We must give priority to commercial agriculture. We have already placed orders for items required by tea, rubber and coconut cultivations. We will import plant nutrients and parasite fungicide required for agriculture, protective agriculture and greenhouses. As secretaries, the Cabinet has permitted us to allow these imports. We have given about 5,000 metric tons for corn cultivations. We have asked them to inform us of their requirement.
What will happen to paddy cultivations?
We
will take the next step for paddy cultivations. In addition to what is obtained through nano nitrogen, if a basal is required, it would cost more to import a higher order fertilizer. Since importing that is difficult, we will have to engage even in a government-to-government transaction and import ammonium sulfate or a product in correlation to that. We will take steps to do that. We have relaxed the ban to import it using licenses. We have carried out the work plan that is required to shift to the right track. I feel that the results can be seen now.
Will a tender process be followed while importing fertilizer?
We will import this through registered companies. Therefore, if the issue relating to funds doesn't worsen, we will import at least the recommended products.
අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නිර්දේශිත ඒවා ගෙනවා.
The period to apply fertilizer at the beginning of cultivations has lapsed. What is needed is urea and the fertilizer used while cultivating. Can this fertilizer be imported in a short period?
ඒ වරදක් දුටුවා නම් අඩුපාඩුවක්.
If a mistake has happened, we feel that we have to rectify this instead of passing on the blame to other authorities, regardless of whoever did the mistake. Therefore, we are trying to rectify this situation as early as we can. If an issue doesn't arise, we feel that what must happen must take its course. If someone feels otherwise, that is not scientific.
කියලා කවුරු හරි මතයක ඉන්නවා නම් ඒක විද්‍යාත්මක නැහැ.
What action will be taken regarding pesticides and weedicides?
කුමිනාශක වල්නාශ
We will take steps to import pesticides and weedicides according to what is required.
ලබා ගැනීමට අපි කටයුතු කරනවා.
Was a collective decision reached to lift the ban on fertilizer imports?
හරිත කෘෂිකර්මාන්තයක් ඇති කරනවා.
This is a collective decision. If someone says this would sabotage the plan, I wish to challenge them to clarify in public as to how this was sabotaged and who did that. I have the right to ask this question as an expert on agriculture. This is a collective decision. If no one agrees on that, then a person is being selfish and is assuming that everyone has to listen to only what they have to say. There is nothing like that. We don't need the opinions of those who don't know this subject. We don't need the support of people who try to meddle with others' industries. I believe the ministry and the department stand with this.
මම හිතනවා අමාත්‍යාංශයේ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව මේ තියෙන සියලුම අය ඒක සමග ඉන්නවා.
State Minister of Agriculture Shashindra Rajapaksa said the restriction would be lifted for cultivations excluding paddy.
We have permitted paddy cultivations to run on organic fertilizer and to import third and fourth grade fertilizer for the cultivation of vegetables, fruits and export crops. If issues arise when the entire country is transitioning to organic farming, we will make some decisions to provide concessions to farmers. We have already received permission to import third and fourth grade fertilizer.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa expressed the following views on the government's decision.
දැන් අපිට ඇහෙනවා ආපහු රසායනික පෝර ගෙන්නුවට කමක් නැහැ.
Now we understand that they are trying to allow chemical fertilizer imports once again. They say that they will grant permission to import materials required for chemical fertilizer cultivations. We can see that the government is trying to reverse its decision by using the name plant nutrients. I am waiting for them to implement this properly. This is a massive disparity between the government's words and actions. I do not know whether the person who made these remarks will be in the position tomorrow. It keeps changing by the minute. We don't know when they would change this decision, but it was the Samagi Jana Balawega that exerted pressure on them to even think about reversing this decision. I wish to remind you that it was the Samagi Jana Balawega's massive rally that influenced this. The government had to reverse its decision in just 5 days after the protests. This is the harvest of the farmers who will bear the responsibility for this. They made a wrong decision that affected farmers who cultivate vegetables, fruits, corn, paddy, soya and banana. The damage caused to tea cultivations can't be restored in 6 months. The government must pay compensation for this. They might claim that they changed the decision by thinking about the welfare of farmers. But we wish to say that the government didn't make this decision on its own. They made the previous decision on their own. We wish to state that the government had to revise their foolish decision only as a result of protests by farmers. Shops at the Nuwara dedicated economic centre and the Nuwara town were closed today. It was in support of farmers demanding a solution to the fertilizer crisis. Farmers marched from the Kalegala junction to the Nuwara town. Farmers of Mipilimana, Magoda, Sita Eliya, Kuda Oya, Kadapola, Galpalama, Ragala and Mahakudugala were present. The protesters handed over a memorandum to the Nuwara district secretary. They asked for it to be submitted to the president and those in the government.
The powerful people will fly to India with their spouses and bring back a bag of vegetables. But from where can we buy vegetables? In 2 months there won't be vegetables. What will the innocent people do about this? We ask the Agriculture Minister to deploy officers to estimate our losses, look at the extent of the damage they have done to farmers, therefore grant compensation to all these farmers. Our correspondents reported that shops in Ragala, Kandapola and Mipilimanna were closed in support of the protests by farmers.
Questions are being raised on the ministry that is responsible for importing nano-nitrogen fertilizer. Shashindra Rajapaksa, the State Minister of Promoting the Production and Regulating the Supply of Organic Fertilizer, said his ministry wasn't involved in the process. He made these remarks responding to allegations that nano-nitrogen fertilizer was bought at a high rate from India.
My organic fertilizer ministry doesn't handle the task of importing and distributing fertilizer. I have no connection to that. I assumed duties in this position in June. It was the Agriculture Ministry that made all the decisions on this. There is a special committee that decided on the cost of this product. When we were told that the cost is high, we held discussions. We successfully managed to reduce more than $2 on each unit. That is the only point at which we got involved in this.
On the 18th of this month, Agriculture Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage said his ministry wasn't involved in importing nano-nitrogen.
I am the Minister of Agriculture. It is the Organic Fertilizer Ministry that is handling this. The entire process is being handled by the Organic Fertilizer Ministry. I am telling you the details which I received from them. Talks have been held to discuss and reduce the price below $10.
The Hippo Spirit ship with Chinese fertilizer containing harmful bacteria is currently off the seas of Kaluthara. Vessel trackers indicate that the ship would head to Colombo, although its date of arrival is unclear. The ship had reached the Colombo outer harbour to restore supplies and had informed it would head to deeper seas. The Polonnaruwa Parakrama Samudraya joint agrarian organisation convened a media briefing today and explained their stance on the government's decision to import quality plant nutrients.
We saw a breaking news item today reporting that the government is going to bring down plant nutrients necessary for cultivations. Why are they doing it in disguise? They can openly say that they are importing urea. Then the Director General of the Agriculture Department says that urea is not hazardous and that it can be applied on human skin as well. Has he just woken up from sleep? He could have said it to the ministers and the president. Without doing that, they are bringing down urea in the guise of plant nutrients after farmers of the country are already battered by the fertilizer crisis. We have a huge suspicion as to whether these are really plant nutrients they are going to import. We suspect that they are going to unload the stock of fertilizer on the Chinese ship. We suspect that they are going to distribute half urea and half compost fertilizer. The fertilizer bag that was sold at 1,500 rupees is now being sold at 6,500 rupees. So clearly, this was done to fix a price for the businessmen.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
IPO, initial public offering of the shares, starting on 23rd November, the first step towards a profitable investment.
Welcome back to your news. Now, Sri Lanka's import bill has risen significantly so far this year, despite many restrictions.
Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral expressed the following views at an event in Jaffna today.
Sri Lanka was growing at nearly 7% per annum from the year 2006 to 2014. Thereafter, we did hit a fairly low patch and growth was stagnant. But at the same time, we should not be discouraged by that. Sri Lanka must get back to a 6+ growth. That's not difficult in my view. It is possible. And we must also ensure that we use the capacity that we have to make exports.
A central bank report showed that Sri Lanka has spent nearly $15 billion on imports between January and September this year. This is higher than $11.7 billion spent within the same period last year. The government had spent $2.6 billion to import fuel. It's a 36% increase from the amount spent on fuel imports last year. According to the central bank report, the country had only generated $8.9 billion through exports in the first 9 months of this year. Textile and garments were the most exported products. As the imports were higher than the exports, the deficit in the trade account had widened to $6 billion in the first 9 months. The deficit during the same period last year stood at $4.3 billion.
The budget was presented, but no solutions were provided for the plethora of issues faced by farmers. No action has been taken to reduce the price of goods. No changes have been made. However, the taxes have been increased in an indirect manner.
Politburo member of the Janatha Vimukti Peramuna Lal Kanta made these remarks participating in another phase of the Gamin Patangamu or Let's Start with the Village program held in Kadugan Nava. The program also saw the participation of JVP MP Bimal Ratnayaka.
While various factions express various views on the allocation of funds through the 2022 budget, people of Udupili Thanna took to the streets today. The people demanded authorities to renovate the access road to their village. The dilapidated road that runs all the way to the Pitapula through Udupili Thanna from Maliga Thanna has not been renovated for nearly 20 years.
People cannot travel on this road during rainy days. People have to carry ill people to hospitals during rain on this road. We ask the rulers who govern this country to renovate this entry road to enter Udupili Thanna. We have to travel 7 kilometers by foot carrying our agricultural equipment. We are helpless. We make ends meet by farming. I join my hands to request you to renovate this road so that we can live without any problems.
Farmers lament, saying that no matter how hard they try to seek the attention of the authorities to solve this issue, their cries have fallen on deaf ears.
Now, an all-night period ceremony and Dhamma sermon was held at the Prime Minister's office and Temple Trees yesterday and today. This was in line with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's birthday.
The all-night Pirit ceremony was held at the Prime Minister's office that was refurbished recently at number 58 Sir Ernest De Silva Mawatha in Colombo 7. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa attended an almsgiving program at Temple Trees today.
Now, Sri Lanka's annual fish production has been declining in the recent years. On International Fisheries Day, Newsfirst's Ruhaza Irfan reports on the importance of protecting Sri Lanka's marine resources.
Sri Lanka's territorial waters, spanning 12 nautical miles, is rich in marine biodiversity. There are about 200 edible species in Sri Lankan waters. But a report by the Fisheries Ministry shows Sri Lanka's fish production is on the decline. As an island surrounded by water, Sri Lanka has a large fishing ground. But these fishing grounds have been affected by various problems, including climate change, pollution and overfishing. Fish production that stood at 530,920 metric tons in 2016 had declined to 505,830 metric tons in 2019. As challenges mount, this number could decrease in the years to come.
It is well known that about 70% of fish stocks are overfished or overexposed, or if not increasingly exploited. In our ocean, there's no place for fish to live peacefully. Therefore, we should establish some places for fish to live, at the same time increase their populations and let larger fish to go out from this area. Under Sustainable Development Goals, is our task to develop at least 10% of our ocean area as marine protected areas. Therefore, as a country, we have to think loud, because the fisheries sector is slowly declining.
Hundreds of fishers and turtles washed ashore after the Express Pearl ship sunk in Sri Lankan waters in May. Adding to these problems is overfishing. Indian fishing trawlers enter Sri Lankan waters illegally and are accused of overfishing in the Sea of Sri Lanka. Fisheries Minister Douglas Devananda was questioned on when talks will resume between India and Sri Lanka to resolve this problem.
Regardless of whether discussions have been stalled or not, we have stopped them from poaching in Sri Lankan waters with their equipment and gear. We have stopped that.
The International Union for Conservation of Nature says nearly 3/4 of the freshwater fish endemic to Sri Lanka are facing a threat of extinction.
Now, the Wildlife Ministry has proposed amendments to the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance. This is to implement the CITES agreement.
The Minister of Wildlife and Forest Conservation has published a bill to amend the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance. If passed, the bill would allow the Minister to make regulations on implementing the CITES agreement. CITES is an agreement between countries to ensure that the international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants don't threaten the survival of the species. The proposed amendment would also give powers to the Minister to appoint committees. This would be to obtain recommendations on issuing CITES permits to trade specimens of wild animals and plants. Sri Lanka signed the CITES Convention in 1979.
Now, protests were held in a number of areas demanding justice for the 2019 April 21st attacks.
The Negombo East District Youth Union held a protest today demanding justice over the 2019 April 21st attacks.
31 months have passed. People are helpless without justice. They will understand this only if it happens to their families. We are gathered here to pray for God's help in seeking justice over this matter.
Meanwhile, the New Wings movement staged a protest at Independence Square in Colombo demanding justice for the victims of the April 21st attacks. They remembered those who lost their lives in the bombings.
Those who were demanding justice for the victims of the April 21st attacks at that time are still questioning the investigations being carried out into this. Religious leaders and civil activists are now continuously questioning that. These rulers aren't ensuring that justice is served.
Meanwhile, MP Harin Fernando expressed the following views in Badulla on the April 21st attacks.
I don't want to mention names or places to these mics. They are waiting to imprison me after I say something wrong by mistake. I won't do such things easily. But today I wish to say that the government must be responsible for the April 21st attacks. As long as I am alive, I can say that these leaders can't sleep peacefully at night. They can't do that. Their conscience knows what they have done. Why is everything turning out bad for them? That is because of karma.
Now, State Minister Channa Jayasumana says a sublineage of the Delta variant is spreading in the country at the moment.
We know that tests conducted by the Sri Javardhanapuri University have shown there is a sublineage of the Delta variant. It is spreading among school children and the youth. Fully vaccinated people will only develop a cold if they contract COVID-19. Generally, it is symptoms like fever, headache and body pains that are visible. So fully vaccinated people tend to ignore if they have been infected by COVID-19 because the only visible symptom is a cold. But the problem is, even if you don't feel the symptoms, the virus can spread to another person. If there is a cold, there is a higher chance that it is because of COVID-19. Therefore, it is important to at least undergo a rapid antigen test. That is because they can transmit the virus. Therefore, we are requesting to pay attention to this.
19 රෝගීකද තමන්ගෙන් රෝගය අනිත් අයට පැතිර යන්න පුළුවන් නිසා ඒ ගැන විශේෂ අවධානයක් යොමු කරන්න කියලා ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා.
Now, healthcare personnel are currently on the front lines of battling COVID-19. Tonight, Newsfirst files this report on 2 successful life-saving surgeries performed in Sri Lanka. The surgeries were performed at the Bulletin and Kegol hospitals.
A 44-year-old woman with a deformity in her right hand and difficulties in speaking underwent critical surgery at the Badulla Provincial General Hospital recently. This was to remove a 3-centimeter cyst from her head.
To perform this surgery, we placed the patient under anesthesia and then created a cut until the entry point to the brain. After that, we woke up the patient during the surgery. We then started talking to the patient and removed the cyst without damaging the brain by monitoring the condition of speech and the right hand. We were able to do this successfully.
During the second phase of the surgery, we kept the patient under anesthesia and removed the tube supplying oxygen. That is because the person can't speak when it is fixed. Once the surgery near the brain was completed, we kept the patient under anesthesia again while stitching up the area. Doctors say this is the second time in which a surgery like this has been performed in the country. It was first done in the Uva province. Meanwhile, the medical team at the Kegol hospital was able to remove a spleen weighing about 3.5 kilograms from the abdomen of a woman suffering from a bone marrow disease. The surgery was performed on a 65-year-old mother of 4.
We undertook a big risk in this surgery. That is because it could have caused excessive bleeding. At the same time, her lungs and kidneys were not functioning properly. But we were able to perform this successfully and save her life.
Now, people near Surya in Hambantota have been affected by a garbage dump in Madunagala.
Locals say the Suryavava Pradesh Sabha dumps garbage at the location. As a result, elephants encroach into the area to consume what is dumped. These elephants return to the forest, leaving behind a trail of destruction to the homes of these villagers. The people are now spending their nights in fear.
I slept at around 6 today. When we were asleep, elephants that encroached into the area at around 11 last night were roaming in the area. They break the fence and encroach into villages. Officials don't understand this.
Villagers point out that liquids seeping from trucks that bring garbage to the site flow into their fields and canals.
We can't cultivate in our paddy fields because of these liquids.
Residents have also been affected due to the burning of garbage in an unorganized way. Newsfirst made inquiries from the Suryavava Pradesh Sabha on this. Its chairman, Eranda Janaka, said the area has been allocated for a compost fertilizer project and that it would take place once funds are received.
Let's have a look at your news overseas. Now, Sudan's ousted Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is to be reinstated. He was placed under house arrest during a sudden military coup last month.
Sudan's ousted Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok is to be reinstated today. This was confirmed by the head of Sudan's Ummah Party, Fadlallah Burma Nazir. On the 25th of October, Sudan's military generals suddenly declared a state of emergency and dissolved civilian leadership. It sparked weeks of mass protests that left scores of people dead. A group of mediators, which included academics, journalists and politicians, released a statement outlining the terms of the agreement with the military leadership. Under this, Hamdok and his cabinet members who were detained during the coup will be released. The rules governing Sudan's transition towards democracy will be restored.
In more news overseas now, new protests have erupted in the Netherlands against new lockdown rules amid rising COVID-19 cases across Europe.
Netherlands is now recording nearly 20,000 coronavirus cases daily. A month ago, it had only seen nearly 3,800 daily cases. This has prompted Dutch authorities to import restrictions in an effort to reduce cases. But people opposing these restrictions engaged in a second night of riots yesterday. They are opposing a 3-week partial lockdown in the country and other coronavirus restrictions. Rioters hurled fireworks at police and set fire to bicycles in The Hague, one of Dutch cities. At least 3 demonstrators are receiving hospital treatment for gunshot wounds. Authorities have launched an investigation. Police used horses, dogs and batons to chase the crowds away. Officials have announced an emergency order in the city and at least 7 people were arrested. The World Health Organization has said it is very worried about the spread of COVID-19 in Europe.
In your sports news now, cricket is back on these shows with the first match of the 2-match test series between hosts Sri Lanka and the West Indies getting underway at the Galle International Cricket Stadium this morning. Batting first, Sri Lanka managed to put on a score of 267 for the loss of 3 wickets at the end of day's play.
On a significant landmark, Ranjan Madugalla became the first match referee to officiate 200 test matches.
Sri Lankaවේ වඩා විශ්වසනීය ප්‍රවෘත්ති සන්නාමය News First. ඔබ ලොව කොතනක සිටියත් අප ඔබ සමගයි. Follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. News First. ඔබේ ජීවිතය අපේ ප්‍රවෘත්ති.
Now, the passing out parade of a new batch of soldiers who completed training with the Sri Lanka Army's Special Forces was held today. This was upon completing their intensive 9-month-long training course, number 51. We'll leave you tonight with the visuals of this ceremony graced by Army Commander General Shavendra Silva. That has been your news for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of the News First team and our interpreter Brian De Cruz, I've been Deshan Gonawala. Don't forget, if you missed out on any of our stories, you can catch us up again on our social media platforms, our Twitter, Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. Thank you for stopping by. Good night and God bless.
ආරක්ෂාකාරීව වේගයෙන් තුවාල කරනකොට කමයක් කාලා මොකද කිරීමයි